The movie begins with Liza coming home after a long day at work. She calls out to her son Jude and searches for him throughout the house, but only finds his shoes neatly placed in the hallway. Suddenly, he sneaks up behind her and frightens the life out of her. Liza playfully scolds him and asks him not to do it again. After a while, she receives a call from her husband Sean, informing her that he'll be home late due to work. Later that night, Liza tucks Jude in and goes to bed, only to wake up to strange noises in the house. She gets up to check on her son and finds his bed empty. Believing that Jude is playing another prank on her, she heads downstairs and spots him hiding in the kitchen. Suddenly, a masked burglar attacks Liza from behind. Though she bravely fights back, his accomplice violently strikes her on the head and knocks her unconscious. The burglars then make their escape, leaving Liza and Jude helpless. Following this, the movie cuts to a few weeks later, and we see that both of them are still traumatized from the attack. Turns out that Jude stopped talking altogether ever since the incident and only communicates by writing on a notepad. His parents take him to a therapist, but he refuses to open up to her as well. Meanwhile, Liza, who had suffered a head injury, has frequent headaches and nightmares about the attack every night. The doctor encourages her to work towards her own healing, which might also help Jude to recover. Sean likes the idea and encourages Liza to open up about the incident. However, she gets upset and refuses to speak on the matter. Because of this, Sean suggests the three of them take a break and leave the city for a while. In the next scene, the family moves into a lovely, secluded guest house in the countryside. After settling it, they go for a walk in the nearby woods and find their way to the beautiful mansion of the estate. It turns out that it has been closed for a long time due to renovations. Meanwhile, Jude begins to hear a voice calling out to him and follows it. He wanders off into the woods and soon comes across an antique porcelain doll buried in the dirt. Back in the mansion, Liza and Sean realize that their son is missing and start getting worried. But just then, Jude arrives with the creepy doll in hand, whom he calls Brahms. Later on, the family returns to the guest house with Brahms, and Liza helps to clean it up. She finds an old crumpled note in his pocket with a list of rules such as having no guests, reading a bedtime story, playing music, and, most importantly, never leaving the doll alone. That night, Liza is startled to see Brahms turn his head and look right at her through the mirror. However, when she looks back, she finds him in the same position as he was earlier. The next morning, Liza wakes up to Jude playing the piano for Brahms while he is seated nearby.
This one's for you, Dolly. Thanks.
She notices that the doll has been dressed into clean clothes. Liza compliments her son for dressing Brahms so neatly, but the boy claims that he didn't do it. After she leaves, the camera pans back to Brahms, who has mysteriously turned his head towards the kid.
Play Freebird.
Later, during breakfast, Liza takes Jude and his new friend for a walk in the woods as per his request. There, the boy hears the voice again, which leads him to an old coffin buried in the ground with some of Brahms' clothes inside. Just as Liza finds him, they are startled by a big dog named Oz barking at them. Soon after, Joseph, its owner, and the groundskeeper comes by and introduces himself. He seems to be spooked upon seeing Jude holding Brahms, and even Oz continues to growl at the doll for whatever reasons. That evening, Liza talks to Sean and points out how much attention their son's giving to Brahms. She also reveals how the doll's clothes were buried in a coffin in the woods. However, Sean tells her to be easy on their son, as he seems to be having fun after a long time, and there's nothing weird at all about pulling an outfit for a doll out of a coffin in the woods. Afterward, the two of them overhear Jude talking to Brahms inside his room. They get excited upon hearing their son speaking again, but he stops once they enter the room. The parents then ask if he was talking to Brahms, and Jude writes yes in his notepad. When asked what they were talking about, he writes that they were discussing the earlier dog and how Brahms didn't like him. Despite the unusual scenario, the parents don't think much of it and simply assume that it's just a kid being a kid. That night, Liza has a nightmare that she is attacked in her home again and even sees Jude wearing a mask of a doll's face. The next day, Jude hands his parents a list of rules for Brahms. These include never having guests over, always keeping Brahms tidy, including him during family meals, never leaving him alone, letting him eat pudding and watch Dragon Ball Z at midnight, and so on. However, they don't give it much thought, believing it's just a kid being playful. Later, Liza finds Jude's favorite teddy bear torn to shreds. When she asks him about it, Jude eerily scribbles on his notepad that it was Brahms who did it. He continues to blame the doll, so she orders him to stay in his room without Brahms until he's ready to apologize. Later, Liza gets creeped out by the doll when she hears the TV turning on when no one is in the room but him. Regardless, she assumes that it was Jude who pulled a prank on her, but he writes that he never left the room at all. Moments later, she returns to the kitchen only to find Brahms missing from his place. Suddenly, she hears Jude running to his room and follows him. him. She scolds him in anger when she finds the door locked from the inside. At this moment, Liza turns around to find Jude standing right behind her with a glass of water. Her anxiety escalates when she finds the door unlocked and Brahms sitting inside the room. However, she finds it hard to trust her own mind and remains unsure if what she saw was real or if she was just hallucinating. As the days pass, Jude continues to carry Brahms with him everywhere. This worries the parents and they contact the therapist to report the new developments. However, she tells them not to worry too much about it and reassures them that maybe having Brahms around is good for Jude to readjust. She also states that the doll is actually helping Jude to work through his trauma and requests them to let him keep it. The doctor then sends them links to articles about toys as therapeutic tools, especially possessed toys that like to murder things. One day, Liza surfs the internet to learn more about antique dolls like Brahms. She soon discovers that every doll has a serial number, which gives details about their previous owners. Outside, as Jude is playing with Brahms, Joseph approaches them. He says that he is looking for his dog, which has been missing since the morning. But before he can say more, Liza arrives there and asserts that they don't know anything about the dog. Hearing this, Joseph decides to leave, but not before giving the doll a good stare. The next morning, Liza looks up the serial number from Brahms's foot, but finds no results. To make matters worse, she stumbles upon Jude's notepad filled with disturbing drawings of Brahms and what appear to be conversations between the two. These drawings also portray the dog violently massacred, and Liza and Sean being shot dead, with Jude standing over them. Huh, imaginative little tyke. That night, Jude gets dressed like his doll buddy and heads for dinner. He then suddenly demands that Brahms be allowed to eat with them with his own plate. However, his parents don't take him seriously and ask him to focus on his own food. Later on, Sean mentions that he has invited his brother and his family for some company. When Jude writes that no guests are allowed as per Brahms's rules, Liza reminds him that his doll doesn't dictate the rules in this house. But this only upsets Jude and he writes that she's making Brahms angry.
He's going to knife you, Mama.
Having had enough, Liza walks away to the kitchen, but she is startled by the shattering sound of something. She rushes to the dining room only to find the table and chairs knocked down and the room in disarray. Jude asserts that he didn't do it and then runs off to his room with Brahms. After a while, Sean checks out the drawings in Jude's notepad and assures Liza that those scary drawings mean nothing. However, she notices that the drawings of the dog and the one with their dead bodies are not in the notepad anymore. This leads to some tension between the couple as they have different opinions on what's happening around them. Liza becomes even more frustrated when Sean claims that she was the one who knocked the table down. He is starting to believe that she has actually gone insane. The following morning, Joseph finally finds his dog in the woods, but in a lifeless state. In the meantime, Liza and Sean realize that Jude is not at home and run off in search of him. The two decide to split up and look for him, and Liza ends up going to the mansion of the estate. As soon as she enters, she begins hearing faint footsteps and voices around her. She even hears Jude laughing in the distance and follows the voices. Shortly after, she ends up in a creepy old room where she finds Brahms seated alone. Just then, Jude walks out of the corner wearing a porcelain mask. When Liza removes it, he miraculously speaks out and apologizes to her. Afterwards, Sean and Joseph also arrive in the old room looking for them. Jude apologizes to his dad as well, and the parents are happy that he can finally talk after so long. Following this, all four of them leave, and Liza asks Joseph about what exactly happened in that house. He responds by revealing about a family that once lived here with an insane son. Joseph explains that this guy was deranged and he even killed a girl in his teenage years. When his face got burnt up by fire, he started wearing a mask to hide himself. It is likely the same one Jude was wearing. Joseph further reveals that the boy's parents later committed the unthinkable while he went on a killing spree. Intrigued, Liza asks about the boy's name, and Joseph shockingly reveals that it is none other than Brahms, Jeffrey Brahms. In the next scene, the family is visited by Sean's brother, his wife, and their kids. The grown-ups then catch up about their lives while the kids go outside to play. Unfortunately, the oldest kid, Will, turns out to be a bully and he immediately starts harassing Jude. He calls him mental and threatens to smash the doll. Jude warns him not to make Brahms angry, but the bully doesn't listen. The boys then engage in a tug-of-war over a hat to determine who's stronger, but in the midst of it, Jude looks over to Brahms and suddenly lets go of the hat, leading Will to stumble backward forward and slip off. A sharp piece of wood lodged into the ground pierces right through his shoulder, prompting the parents to rush him to the hospital.
Good one, Brahms.
Don't mention it.
Later that night, Jude frantically confesses to Liza that his doll wants him to live in the mansion together forever. He tearfully recalls how the evil doll has threatened to hurt them if he refuses to stay with him. However, Liza reassures her son that no one can hurt any of them. Afterward, she searches the internet about Brahms by entering its code in reverse. This finally allows her to get information on the doll's dark history. Liza discovers the creepy coincidence that all the previous owners had died after their kid adopted the doll. These kids would go on to commit heinous murders and claim that the doll made them do it. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sean talks to a guy familiar with the area and discovers the mansion's history. He also learns that the last owner of the house went insane, and the man is none other than Joseph. Alarmed, Sean rushes back to the house while Liza realizes that Jude is missing again. She goes to look for him, but suddenly, Joseph enters with a shotgun. He assures her that Jude is safe and claims that he's here according to the will of Brahms. Joseph then confesses that he was the one who put Brahms back together after finding him broken into pieces. It is revealed that this doll purposely preys on the vulnerable ones, and Jude was an easy target for him. Having heard enough, Liza grabs a candle and pours the melted wax on Joseph's face. She then frantically runs to the mansion, where she finds Jude wearing the doll mask and holding Brahms in his arms. She asks to hold Brahms, but this only gives Jude the opportunity to grab the shotgun. Liza tries to reason with him, but he points the gun at her, ready to kill her. Just then, Sean runs in and smashes Brahms' head with a mallet, which effectively breaks Jude from the trance. Moments later, Joseph arrives at the scene, and he is horrified to discover that Brahms' porcelain head has shattered. We can now see a grotesque demonic entity lurking underneath the mask. All of a sudden, Brahms sits upright and uses his power to choke Joseph. The poor man is then levitated into the air and killed by an explosion. After this, Jude holds Brahms in his arms, and it appears the boy is once again under his control. But suddenly, he turns back and throws the doll into the fireplace, burning it to ashes. In the aftermath of this incident, the family moves back to their old home in the city. They resume their normal lives and appear to be happy. But one night, Jude suddenly gets up and dons the porcelain doll mask. He then ominously says that Brahms will be very happy in his new home as long as the family follows the rules. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.